This is the after party. Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilds. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Slots for gifting a total of 90. Save those white baby dollars. A great champion, a great hero, always in the trenches. Can't say enough about this champion of White Wellbeing. Thank you so very much, and congratulations, dear brother. Another great champion came in second place, and that is Brad C., financially gifting 20 US dollars. Thank you, dear champion and brother, and congratulations to you as well. Now, for all of you, you may financially gift on Entropy at 15% cost to you, to those wonderful people over at Entropy, protecting free speech for us, where you can watch the stream and you can also ask and vote on questions over there. They don't disappear unless you or I delete them. You will find the link in the description below, and I will have that stream up and running in just a moment. You can also financially gift on Cash App. Drop down into the description. Make sure your carabiners are locked in place when you do. Click on Cash App and financially gift there. You can, in both cases, address questions or make comments when you financially gift. You can also ask questions and comment on the live and YouTube, and we are streaming to a couple other platforms today as well, and I will be keeping an eye on those to see how they are working out. And as you can see on your screen, the one and only, asked by many, infamous in some realms, famous in others, a squatting Slav is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody loves him. Slav, please introduce yourself to the esteemed community, folks who may not know who you are. Tell them where they can find you, and then our one and only Mr. George will take us into this magnificent conversation.
Hey guys, it's an absolute pleasure to be back on the show after a whole year of being completely inactive with any kind of media and anything. Some of you guys might remember me from before. I sure hope you do. I'm Slav from Squatting Slav TV on YouTube. You can find me there, YouTube-Squatting Slav TV. I do all kinds of alternative news videos, sort of on-site videos with protests and demonstrations. You can find me on Twitter as well, at Squatting Slav TV. And as I've said, I haven't been too active in the last year and a half just because my life's been so busy, but I do plan on coming back full force pretty soon here. So it's an absolute pleasure to see you two guys again and rejoice, and obviously everyone out there listening and watching as well.
All right. Hello. How are you? We already have a question from the chat. Someone who is a little newer to you, because Slav's been on twice. He's saying, where are you from in the Slavic world?
I'm actually from Belgrade, which is the capital city of Serbia. But I've been living in Vancouver now for almost 25 years. I moved here as a child, but I've maintained close ties with Serbia and obviously all my extended family there, whom I go to visit almost on an annual basis. So I'm originally from Serbia, as you can maybe tell by the Russian-style murderer accent. But yeah, I've been living in Canada, but I do maintain very close ties with that country, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I was on your second show, I think especially, although we touched on the first two, where we talked a lot about you had gone back a few months prior at that time to Belgrade and around Serbia. We talked a lot about the real on the ground stuff, because sometimes Americans have this idealized notion of Eastern Europe, and you gave the right perspective where, yeah, you did point out there's some wonderful things about it. It sounds amazing. Definitely some more community and camaraderie and some beautiful things, even about life in the city, in a capital city of Belgrade. It sounded amazing, and it's a place I want to get to myself. But you also explained how all the crazy stuff is still unfortunately permeating that part of the world too. And you all have to make sure that you keep the line, hold the line, and make sure that we turn around what's going on in our more Western European countries and in North America and Australia. So on that note, there's no shortage of things to talk about in 2020 and now into all the things continuing into 2021. So what was your 2020 like, and what have been some of your observations? We'll see what we can go on from there.
As we kind of mentioned in the pre-show portion, 2020 was an absolute blur for me, primarily just because I was working so much. I was working like 12 to 14-hour days, not in the gulag, but for my personal business, don't worry. So it was very busy in that sense. And I completely sort of tuned out of everything that was going on in the political world, in the news. Obviously, with all this, all the COVID stuff that's going on, I mean, as you're all aware, for the last year and something, you know, the media has just been funneling negativity. Every time you turn on the news, it's some negative headline about COVID, cases going up, death tolls going up, this and that. So I kind of tuned out from all of this and realized that, you know, as soon as you turn the news off, there's this beautiful world outside around you to enjoy and to prosper in and to live your daily lives in. So yeah, I noticed, sorry, that it really helps to tune out of all of this, because a lot of people around me were saying how, you know, 2020 was a horrible year for them. It was depressing. It was, you know, the worst year ever. And I really didn't think so. Sure, it passed really quickly for me, but it definitely wasn't a negative year. I mean, I continued living my life as normal. Yes, I was sort of in a remote community here in British Columbia, where I am isolated, you know, from everyday city life and all the COVID protocols, you know, the mask wearing and this and that and all the rules and regulations. But at the same time, you know, I noticed that as soon as you turn your TV off, life gets a lot better. So for anyone out there right now that's feeling negative or down or pessimistic, you know, or hopeless, just remember, I mean, give it a try. Turn your TVs off for 3 days and see how much better you feel. This is just a perpetual echo chamber that the media is pushing on you to make you feel negative, to make you feel hopeless. Because when you're negative and hopeless and feeling alone, you're very easily conquered, you're very easily divided, and so on and so forth. So for anyone out there, turn off the damn TV, go outside, enjoy nature, and see exactly, you know, how beautiful the world is. Nothing has changed since 2019. You can bet that.
What about social media too? You're not a huge social media guy. I don't see you a lot on Twitter and places like that. I mean, we need to be aware of what's going on. And I know, you could tell, hopefully we're being sincere here, because Jason and I do a lot on social media. So it might sound interesting for me to tell people to get off social media, but when you turn it off, you realize that it is almost, there's a little bit of a perspective where it's like an alternative reality. And like you said, you realize, wait, like things are a lot better, and I feel a lot better when I'm not on there all the time. What's your take on that? I know some people have certain disciplines, like they only have certain times of the day they go on, like they schedule it. They don't just like wake up and check Twitter, and every time there's a pause in their day, or they don't know what to do, or they're bored, they go check Twitter. Do you have anything like that, or is it just that you have enough going on where it's not even a temptation?
Well, essentially for the last year, I've been so busy that there's been, you know, no problem with staying off of social media. But in the past, from the period where I was very active on my YouTube channel and obviously on Twitter and Facebook, it definitely engulfed me. Like some days I'd be spending like 10 to 12 hours on the computer, you know, like trash talking SJWs, or posting content, posting links, sharing things, this and that.
Which you are very good at.
Thank you. But I realized, like, even this completely just burns you out and tires you out. And once again, I mean, everything in life is not to sound like a hippie, everything is about balance. So you need to turn off the Twitter sometimes. You need to get off your phone. You need to turn those notifications off, put it on airplane mode, whatever you do. Get out of that echo chamber and just, do something different. Like, be disciplined with it. If you're disciplined with posting on Twitter and other social media, be disciplined with getting off of it and taking a break from it as well. Dedicate maybe a few hours of the day where you're not even looking at your phone, or where you're going outside, or perhaps even a week or so where you're not overly active, and you'll see it's great. It does wonders for you. Go outside and enjoy the world. When you're constantly looking at this little screen in front of you, you forget all this beauty that's around you, and it's very easy to do. Like it used to happen to me. I'd be walking out on the street like this, looking at my phone, not realizing that it's a beautiful sunny day. So yeah, try it. It'll definitely make you feel better if you're one of those people who finds that they're on social media too much.
Yeah. Do you think that because you're someone that does engage with those people that are really in the matrix and really brainwashed, that even though people like us, the stereotype is that people like us are really angry and bitter, and we're not moving along with the evolution of the world? You mentioned beauty. I mean, you're a man's man. You've got a lot of testosterone, but you're not afraid to say, hey, it's a beautiful world. I want to enjoy a beautiful world. Like, we're actually sensitive people in the right kind of way. We appreciate beauty. Do you think that some of those people who are, as you said, the SJW types, I know, there's a lot of quick things you can call these people, but that's kind of, you got in that phase, in that era a few years ago, you rose to fame by going out and actually confronting these people IRL. So you're known for that. Do you think that it's actually, even though the stereotypes certain way towards us, that they're part of the way they are because they actually they're not as sensitive as they think they are? They're actually, their whole lives are just this kind of virtual reality of plugged into these machines, and that maybe to kind of have a little bit of empathy in their direction that's kind of like corroded their soul or desensitized them.
Yeah, I mean, great point. Anytime I've interacted with these people, or just seen how they function, in the online world, when you're discussing things with them or interacting with them in real life, you realize that they're artificially sensitive. And when I say this, I mean it in all honesty. They try to be artificially offended by everything around them. It's not even a genuine organic reaction. It's like, okay, this is something that shouldn't offend 99% of people, or it's going to offend me. This isn't offending someone, it's going to offend me. So their reactions and their sensitivity are very artificial. They're artificial victims, and I've been saying this, from the beginning of time. Same with things like virtue signaling. These aren't very genuine emotions and reactions to the outside world. So I mean, they're obviously trying to overcompensate for a lack of something else by having these artificial reactions. Whereas, guys like us, personally, I have no problem saying that something is beautiful or that something is sad, this and that. But that's because I believe that I'm a very balanced individual. There's times to be tough. There's times when you're fighting, punching, doing this and that, and there's times where you need to be sensitive and softer and more giving, and that's what makes a man. It's the ability to be balanced like that. You can't be walking around like a Terminator 24/7. It's just not realistic. But you also can't be walking around, crying with purple hair 24/7. So there's a very fine balance, but that balance is what makes the man.
Yeah, that's really, I like what you said there about, the way I would say it is that they're programmed. Like you said, oh, this new data, this falls into that category that is supposed to offend people. Therefore, I will make sure I demonstrate a very offended response. It is kind of dehumanizing. You have to wonder, are they really feeling anything? or is there just this detached, desensitized program response where it's all intellectual? It's 100% intellectual, where it's just like, oh, I have a signal now where I'm supposed to be offended. Let me act offended.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just not realistic. Like, even from an evolutionary standpoint, the things that some of these people are getting offended by, they're getting offended by, beer commercials, just silly things that, if in the real world, if you were this soft, you would be long gone. So it's this culture of victimhood that they've created, this sort of safe space atmosphere that they're trying to embed all over the world, that allows them to be this frail and this soft. Because most of these people 100 years ago, they would not have lasted a day, by the standards that they're living by today. So that's the way I see it.
Right. We have some people in the chat were asking about a subject that's come up with you before, but it's worth getting into again because you've lived in both. Speaking about balance, city and country. So you've lived in both, and we'll review what some of your experiences has been. Do you feel different when you're in one place or the other? I know that a lot of people in these circles have this 100% cities are bad. It might be how cities exist now in a lot of our countries, but I push back on that. I have a lot of experience in cities, and they're not all bad. And in the future, when we take back our destiny, they don't have to be bad. There's always going to be population centers for various reasons where people congregate. But what have been your experiences between city and country?
Well, I lived in the bush for 3 years. Now, when I'm talking about the bush, I mean, I lived in a small town that's 500 miles away from the capital city here where I am. Now, I was in the dead of the bush. Like, my driveway was 2.5 miles of mud. I was literally on the last property on the phone line there. I had bears, moose, wolves, cougars, all kinds of animals running around my property. It was 40 acres basically of woods. I had to chop wood in the winter. It would get to minus 30, minus 40. And yeah, life definitely wasn't always easy up there. So to be able to thrive and even survive in that kind of environment, you do have to be cut out for it. It's definitely not for everyone. It does require you to be a lot more active, a lot more reactive as well. You get tons of problems. Like at minus 30, things that you'll never even think of in the city tend to happen out there. For instance, when it was really cold, my water, there's no water. The lines and the pipes freeze, and you can't even shower at night. Or then you go to open a door outside, and the doorknob falls off because it's frozen. You can't start your truck. There's a million problems. So if you can handle these things on a daily basis, and if you're somebody that's active and that can withstand the elements, and you have a good head on your shoulders, you're not going to turn into a crackhead or become an alcoholic because you're in the middle of nowhere, then it's definitely for you. Can you stand the swarms of mosquitoes and bugs in the summer? Like where I was living, you literally couldn't even go outside to pee for 30 seconds because you'd be swarmed by mosquitoes from May all the way to September. So I know a lot of people often, especially in our circles, romanticize living in the countryside, living in this little tiny shack in the middle of the woods, but it's absolutely not for everyone. You need to try to do it for a week and then see if you can last, and then a month and see if you can last, because I guarantee that it's not meant for 90% of people. That being said, it was a great experience. I learned a ton being out there. I had an electrical company up there that was extremely successful. I'm now moving it back to the city. So there's way more opportunity in these smaller places. You can make a lot of money. There's a way, way bigger sense of community. Everybody knows everybody else. It's much less cold in terms of people than the city. So it definitely has its ups and downs. Now, I'm not the one that's frowning upon city life. I'm back in the city right now myself. I wanted to be closer to family. I love the city as well. It has a lot to offer. European cities especially, they're always really close to the outskirts, so you can kind of have a balance of the best of both worlds. I think for myself, preferably, I would love to live somewhere on the outskirts of the city, and that's what I'm going to be doing within the next few months. So not too far out, but close enough where I can still go into the city, on a weekly basis, if need be. But yeah, there's perks to both lifestyles. It just depends on the kind of person you are. If you like to go to Starbucks every day and sip your Vegano mocha latte or whatever it's called, then the bush life might not be for you. But if you're someone who likes to hunt, fish, likes ATVing and the rugged climate and the rugged environment and putting yourself to the test, and by all means, go pursue a life outside of the city. So both have their positives and negatives.
Did you do what you had indicated, where you did like a test run for a week or a month before you went out there?
Well, I went up there in January of 2018, and after 2 days, I was like, oh, screw this, I'm going back to the city. I was tired. It was like minus 20. I didn't even have all my winter gear yet. And I was like, okay, screw this. And then eventually I got into it. It just became a routine. I totally forgot about it. My business picked up really, really quickly. I got a bunch of contracts. So for me, it was great. Like, it just took a little bit of time. And then obviously the whole nature aspect of it, waking up and, seeing moose out in the driveway, having a bear coming right up to my house that I was feeding. Don't tell the people at PETA. So a lot of stuff was happening up there, and just the different stimuli of everyday life that I wasn't experiencing in the city kept me busy and kind of kept me interested in staying up there.
Jason, have you ever done that kind of real rugged in the bush kind of thing? I mean, what Slav is describing is definitely not just living in the suburbs outside of the city. He did the full Monty.
Yeah, that's I haven't lived in any permanent sort of scenario out in some place that is very primitive. I did live out in deep into the country, and that's actually where the story of Born Guilty takes place, where you come visit me. That's the interactive part of it. But that was on a multi-millionaire's property, and you did have to drive a ways to get the things you wanted, but and the power went off a little bit more often, and there were far more wild animals than I've been accustomed to in the cities and in the suburbs and the exurbs, even beyond there, but never all the way out in the bush. I think something that's important to mention about that, I think is really a takeaway, is really how difficult it is to live out as far as possible from the rest of humanity and access to the things that you need. So the things that Slav is talking about here are hilarious, and we are enjoying them. But we have a lot of people who are extraordinarily soft, and their lives are soft, their days are soft, and they have no calluses anywhere on their body. They are soft people, and yet they are looking for an excuse to do nothing. And so they think about cravening off into the hills to hide from everything going on in the world. And I think this should be a real wake-up call for a lot of people hearing the kind of things that Slav is talking about. You want to get away, you can get far enough away that you will almost never see another human being. As there were periods, last time we had Slav on, he was talking about the long, cold, dark day after day after day with no other human beings. You can get that far out away from humanity, and it will be very difficult. You're going to have to be as tough as Slav, and you're also going to have to think ahead in a lot of ways that we're not accustomed to, living in areas where we can easily access groceries and the like. And yet, even living all the way out there and being as resourceful as Slav is, and many others who live out in the bush, they still have to return to civilization to get the things that they need to be able to survive out in those environments. So unless you're going to return to a perfectly animal state and be able to pull down game and with your bare hands and rocks and things of this nature, unless you're going to return to a purely primitive state and shorten your lifespan to about maybe the mid to late 20s at best, then you're going to have to be returning to civilization. And that's one of the things, as fun as it is to have Slav on, that I always resonates with me is the reality of the hardships of living out in the bush and living out in the wild. I mean, the bears coming up to the house, moose will kill you. Bears will, of course, kill you. Black bears are documented hunting human beings. Male black bears are documented in the United States and Canada hunting human beings, not just a scenario of a female grizzly or black bear harming or killing you because you got too close to her cubs. But we even have seen this video that came out was about a month and a half ago of the guy who thought he was coming across some bobcat cubs, and instead it was mountain lion cubs. And she was ready to tear him to pieces, even though those animals are said to be quite timid when confronted with a human being facing them. Maybe a story from Slav about facing off against a wild animal. I think people would probably be interested in that. Any instances, brother, of when you were out there in the bush and you came face to face with something potentially that could have seriously injured or maimed or even killed you, and any steps that you had to take when confronted with that?
Yeah, it was. I don't want to say a common occurrence, but it definitely happened. I had two bears on the property. One was a mother black bear. I'm guessing she was around maybe 4 years old or so. Mid-sized bear, and she had two cubs. And then there was also another black bear that was completely brown in color. Believe it or not, even black bears can be almost grizzly bear cinnamon color in terms of their fur. And now this bear had a little bit of personality. This brown one, he actually charged me a few times. What black bears do is a false charge. They'll sort of run towards you and then halt and turn back to see what your reaction is, and that's essentially their warning. So this bear was constantly around my property. Like, I did my best, obviously, to keep my garbage and everything stored away. Another thing, I didn't have a dumpster there. I had to store all the garbage in a container and then drive it to the dump, which was like 30 miles away. So that's another thing, that people oversee. You have to store that garbage somewhere, and obviously in the summer it does attract a lot of animals, and it attracted these bears. Now, this brown bear, or sorry, this black brown bear, it sort of it had an attitude. It was a younger bear as well. It was probably about 3 years old, and it was a little bit dumb. It's still. It probably didn't interact too much with humans, and it was a little bit cocky, and it had an attitude. And yeah, this guy would charge me like almost on a daily basis. I'd be walking outside of the house at night, and these bears would be virtually invisible because it's pitch black. There's a little bit of light from the shop on the property and the house, and the bears are pitch black, and they're always moving around. So I would hear them barking and growling and all of this. And like I said, this brown bear did charge me a few times, and I just sort of stood my ground, and he backed off. But yeah, like, this kind of stuff up there is very common. And if you don't have basic animal smarts and instincts, then you really can get into trouble. There were times where I got a little bit too close to the cubs as well with the mama black bear, and same thing, she would bark at me, growl at me, and charge me. The cubs would climb into the trees, and she would stand her ground there for sometimes an hour, making sure that I left and wasn't there. So once again, these are very, very realistic things that you do need to pay attention to when you're living in that kind of environment that otherwise wouldn't even cross your mind. Like when you're in the city. Here, I'm more afraid of squirrels than I am anything else, right? So yeah.
Any instances, just real quickly, on the other end of that spectrum, where you came across a wild animal and you felt like there was almost some sort of understanding between you two, almost some sort of an odd kinship out there in the wilderness?
Yeah, actually, there was one owl that also frequented the property. Now I'm starting to sound like Ace Ventura here, but yeah, there was an owl that frequented the property, and he was very tame. Like he would let me get really close to him. I was coming up maybe within a few feet away from him, and he would just kind of sit there and watch me. He was probably an older owl because he was so big in size and had probably been around humans before, and it was just so fascinating watching this animal at point blank range, just staring you back in the eyes. It almost felt like I was in a movie where I was making a connection with this thing, almost like a friendship, and it would just keep coming back. So yeah, just there's experiences on both sides of the spectrum that kind of humble you and just make you appreciate the beauty of nature, the love in it, and then the danger aspect as well. It's mixed, but it's amazing.
Yeah, owls are quite intelligent. I know my parents read this book. I haven't read it, but they were quite taken by it. I think it's called Wesley the Owl. If any of you are animal lovers out there, it's about a researcher that has this friendship. She actually could call it with this owl that was in custody, and they were able to communicate. The things my parents told me from this book were absolutely incredible. It's really interesting to hear this. What about the people? What about the other human beings? You mentioned that there's the community, and I don't doubt it, but because that's a smaller, tight-knit community, I would imagine they might have to kind of vet you first. Was there any kind of process where they were on guard or did things to get to know you in a certain way or make sure that you were a legit guy before you could get into the community? I mean, well, you did say that your business picked up pretty quickly, so maybe not, but anything to say on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would go into town there maybe once or twice a week to grab sometimes supplies or basic groceries, whatever I needed. And when I got there, I would obviously get looks. Everyone could tell that I'm not from there because it is a relatively tight community of maybe, I don't know, 1,200 maybe to 2,000 people on the outskirts of that little town at maximum. So everyone sort of knows everyone else. They all interact on a daily basis. They'll greet you, which is really nice. That's not something that you see too often in the city. So yeah, at first there was a little bit of that sort of that alienation between myself and everyone else. But once you introduce yourself, you go to the grocery store, you introduce yourself there. Oh, I'm this new guy, I do this and that. You go, to the barber shop, same thing. You speak with people there. To the supply shop, you introduce yourself there. Within a few months, word gets around. Everyone knows you, and everyone's there for you in case you need something. That's the beauty again of small towns. Everyone's very tightly knit, and they're more hospitable than people in the big city. So they really will go out of their way to help you, or to hook you up with someone else that offers some kind of service, and vice versa, right? So there was a little bit of that wariness at first, but that's expected. It's like I'm just this new guy in this town of people. Where everyone knows each other, all the kids know each other, they all go to the same school, the parents know each other, all the business owners know each other. So yeah, it took a little bit, but word gets around, and you meet people, and as soon as they see that you're a normal person and an okay guy, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we turn to some of the current events and what, as much as you can tell, is the mood of different kinds of people in Canada looking down at the United States, looking down just because you're north of us, with our election and other things that have been going on. Yeah, what's the take on that, and what's the mood? What can you kind of pick up from putting your finger in the wind right now?
Well, I mean, Canada I see sort of as a little brother of the U.S. You guys set the global trends. You guys set the media trends, the pop culture trends, everything. So whatever is going on down there culturally is sort of echoed up here. With these recent elections and everything, I think the majority of people here, who are in favor of Biden winning, and they love the fact that Trump is gone, which is expected. But at the same time, I think people are at the point now where they sort of see, where they kind of see that
there's a little wildlife.
where they're sort of backing off from U.S. politics because they think it's this circus that's almost surreal. It's becoming like a reality TV show where it's going from one extreme to another. So I think that's where most people stand right now, and I feel like in the next 4 years, people are going to distance themselves from politics a lot more than they have within the last 4 years. When Trump came into office, like the layperson was more politically active online, on social media, and everywhere than ever before. And I think that's going to fade out here slowly, simply because I think people kind of see things as calming down in the U.S. At least here, like they see Biden as the voice of reason, obviously, and the guy that took out the big bad orange man. So that's my view on things. I think people are going to kind of fade out from U.S. politics up here, at least a lot more than they did in the last 4 years.
The last thing that you said, I somewhat expected, with them, a lot of people in Canada thinking, okay, with Biden, things are back to normal, and this anomaly, this 4 years of this weird Trump thing is now going to fade away. But a minute or so before that, my ears perked up because you said people in Canada also see it swinging between extremes in the United States. So, everything, all the news that we get in the States about Canada is that there's some pretty, what we would call, people like us would call, extreme things going on there as well. So what did you mean quite by that, by saying extremes? I mean, even though Canada is very, very anti-white, to the left, to use that kind of terminology in general, do they see some of the, I guess, social unrest and some of the agendas going on in the U.S.? Do they see that as extreme? Do they see that as necessary, like a necessary pushback on the Trump years?
Yeah, I should have made myself more clear. I didn't mean extreme in the sense of the political spectrum, not the entire like dichotomy, left versus right, not those extremes. I mean, I just feel like U.S. politics to the average person in Canada is a lot more turbulent and a lot more action-packed than Canadian politics. Like you guys had the BLM riots in March. And then, shortly after that, it sort of snowballed into the whole election thing, Trump's lawsuits, Biden coming into office, and so on and so forth. So it's been a very action-packed year in U.S. politics. I feel, especially with the whole COVID thing going on this last year, and I think people up here are kind of they're so overwhelmed that that it's easier for them to back off from it all and assert a more neutral position, a neutral view of it all, than to try to engage as they have been the last 4 years. Simply because I think people up here, like the average person, obviously is probably thinking like, "Holy, what's going on in this country? Every single day there's something crazy going on. Whether it's people burning or looting cities, or killer hornets that are coming out and stinging you." So that's the general view that people have up here. I think they're sort of going to back off with their involvement in U.S. politics, especially now that Biden is in office, because they feel that a certain level of stability has been reached. Once again, that's what I see in the average person. Personally, I feel the next 4 years are going to be absolutely mental in that regard with Biden, and it's really going to start picking up once him and Kamala start to do their thing. But that's a different story.
Start to do their thing. And what's the COVID experience been like up there? I just saw Iron Will in the chat said that the UK is now in lockdown until July. When am I going to get back to England, man? I want to go see merry old England. This is ridiculous. They're keeping me out. I don't like this.
The COVID experience here has varied from province to province. For instance, some of the eastern provinces have had way more stringent lockdowns. Like they've had periods, I think they had 2-week periods where they were on a complete lockdown. Over there, the authorities take it a lot more seriously. They're fining people for not abiding by all the regulations and the COVID rules. The curfews are a lot more strict, this and that. In the city where I'm at, I don't think it's as strict. We haven't really had any lockdowns like this. It's a little bit boring right now. Like shops and businesses are usually closed by 7 or 8 p.m. But that's it. It hasn't been as stringent. Like a few days ago, we have restrictions obviously on things like gatherings. A few days ago, I had 10 people at my house, and I probably shouldn't have done that. Officers
in Minecraft, you had 10 people at your house in Minecraft.
Right, exactly. So I mean, it hasn't been as stringent here, but at the same time, I do see a sense of worry and uncertainty in people. When it all started, we were told, okay, wear your masks for 14 days and it'll all be gone and over with. And now we're at the year mark and nothing's changed. It's only getting worse and worse. And every single time they have a new wave, they're going to impose more and more restrictions. So I think even the average person here that was pro-COVID, pro safety, pro masks, pro everything, is slowly starting to realize that, hey, this might last for a long time. What am I going to do? How am I going to secure my livelihood? So the general attitude that I sense is sort of one of worry and uncertainty. And once again, I feel that this is fueled 90% by the media, by people just getting sucked into this funnel of negativity that the media has been projecting for the last year and a half. Like if I were to turn on the TV right now, it would just be COVID, cases going up, deaths going up, this and that. It's sure it might be happening, but turn that TV off for one day and you realize that the sun is still shining, the birds are still chirping, there's still a world out there that, like I keep saying, that you can fully enjoy despite all of this stuff going on. Like to me, nothing has really changed since 2019 or the previous years.
Right. Again, we talked about that earlier for anyone tuning in a little later now, but I agree. My 2020, personally, this isn't to flex on anyone. It's just how it happened and some things I'd prepared for. Was actually one of the best years of my life. So it doesn't all have to be bad. When I ask you, I kind of smile to myself because when I ask you what the mood is like in Canada, I have a tough question when people I speak to, especially friends who are international, ask me the same question about the States. Because for me, I think to myself, I'm not really a good barometer because I don't watch the news much. And in my personal life, I don't interact with many people who have a vastly different perspective than I do. So, and that's not to say I'm not aware of it. Obviously, I am. But fortunately, the people closest to me, I don't have anyone in my immediate life who I speak to on a regular basis who has shall we say, a very different worldview and a very different set of values. So when I ask you a question like that, what is it based on? Is it just based on your perceptions of the media, or do you have people in your personal life, or are you the kind of guy who maybe you socially experiment and strike up conversations with the Starbucks crowd just to kind of do your own informal straw poll and kind of get the temperature of how people are thinking? Like what kind of things go into you be able to get that social mood in Canada, and speak to that?
Well, obviously, I'm sure this is the case, as you said, for you guys. Like if I go on any of my social media platforms and interact with people, I know it's an echo chamber. Everyone probably feels the same, shares the same general views and sentiments towards the COVID situation. So to get sort of an outside view, I tend to look at. This is going to sound really nerdy, but I look at the comment sections in some of these, news articles that are being published.
Right.
On COVID, whether it's local news or news, BBC or CNN, and that I feel represents the other side of the spectrum, the other side of the attitudes that we don't see. And when you look at the comments on these threads, mind you, there's a lot of bots as well on those that are meant to spread fear. There's a lot of fear there as well, a lot of anxiety, a lot of hopelessness and uncertainty. And I mean, even with people in the general public, like if you were to go to a pub down here or a bar, God forbid, you forget to put your face mask on when you go inside. You're bound to trigger somebody in there, and somebody is bound to have an over-the-top reaction, telling you, "Hey, put your mask on," this and that. So I definitely see that the entire situation in regards to COVID has been exploited. It's been politicized, to divide people. Maskers versus anti-maskers, vaxxers versus anti-vaxxers, and so on and so forth. Even right. In the U.S., you saw it's like if you were questioning the COVID narrative, you were a Trumper, you were with Trump, you were a crazy conspiracy theorist, and if you weren't, then you were siding with Biden and the voice of reason, this and that. So it's been used heavily to divide people, and that's what I see. I see this very stark division happening. But like I said earlier, I do see a lot of those people on the other side, who are sucking all the information at the beginning, who are worried, paranoid, fearful. Even they're kind of starting to question what's going on, and even they're sort of starting to ask themselves, how far is this going to go? How long is it going to last? Like, is this rational? How am I going to secure my livelihood? So that to me is the most important thing. It has to get to that point where people start to think for themselves without getting sucked into the negative tornado that's being created by the media.
I agree with that completely. Go ahead, Jared.
I just had a very quick follow-up question, but yours might be more relevant. So go ahead, Jason.
No, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead and follow it up. And then if you have any questions or comments, now's the time to get them in, because we're running out of time with the great squatting Slav. And I am going to ask after Jared, just so this can prime some of the folks who are with us, financial gifting as well, before we tap out here, is I'm going to be asking Slav after Jared asks his question about how to stay healthy mentally and physically in an age when we are being told to lock down, to strap up, cover our faces with diapers, breathe in the germs of those diapers day in and day out, and etc. So Jared, go right ahead.
Hopefully unused diapers, Jason.
Yes. Yes.
Well, yeah, that's a subject that we all care very much about, the health. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Slav, I was just going to ask, and forgive me, I know this is a bit of a stereotype, but I'm glad to hear there's some pushback, because I was going to ask, do you find Canada has this reputation of there's really not as much questioning of narrative, really not as much questioning of the media? It's kind of our Scandinavia here in North America. Funny that they're both northern too. I don't know if that's a coincidence or it speaks to something else. But yeah, the Canadians, there's plenty of people in the US that just go along with it too, the Starbucks crowd, as you said. But we also have a very robust, as we've seen recently, and they've been unduly targeted. We have a really robust section of our population that bristles at this stuff and says, man, no, I'm questioning this, I'm going to push back. Is there a culture of that? You know, are there figures like the independent radio types or the guys who are say, get off my land? I mean, I guess there has to be out in the bush, like where you were living. But what is that like in Canada? Because again, the impression we get down here, again, giving respect to the fact that stereotypes are a little messy, but there's still something to them, is that a lot of the population in Canada just goes along to get along, doesn't ask questions, doesn't kind of pick and poke at things, and is, well, in a word, more docile.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly touch on Jason's question as well in terms of staying fit, and then I'll jump into yours as well, Jared. So in terms of staying fit, I mean, there's so much you can do physically. When I was in the bush, I obviously didn't have a gym close to me. I bought the home gym setup for maybe $1,500, a squat rack, bench, pull-up bar, dip bar, and I was using that almost on a daily basis. I'm not lying. And then you know, you can do the same. You can do the same where you are, right? You can have a home gym. If you don't like going to the gym and wearing a phase diaper, breathing in 500 ppm of CO2 while you work out, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. You can get the home gym. You can build something in your backyard. You can do push-ups. You can do crunches. You can do pull-ups. All of this at home. So this whole situation is definitely not an excuse to be lazy and to sit around the couch eating Cheetos all day and drinking, soy lattes. It's absolutely not. And if you can stay physically fit, you'll stay mentally fit as well. The endorphins that you get from working out and staying active are absolutely incredible and crucial to you. I mean, give it a try. If you're someone that is inactive, go for a walk, go for a run, and immediately after it, you'll see how much better you feel. So just stay physically fit, stay mentally fit as well. Talk to your friends. Don't alienate yourselves. Remember that this is just to me. I mean, I see all of this as a joke. I'm laughing at all this. I don't see it as a serious situation. So from day one, I've essentially been laughing at it, and I tell other people to adopt that same attitude. Just think of this as one big circus. Be above it. Be smarter than it. Question it. Laugh at it. Enjoy it. Stay sharp. Talk to people. Engage in all these various discussions. Don't be afraid to meet up with people. There's plenty of places that you can go outside for walks with people, where you can be in larger groups, where you're not in the house, this and that. So that's the first thing. Now, secondly, to answer your question, Jared, there are a lot of people in Canada with that obviously question the entire narrative and that do realize what's going on, particularly people in the more conservative inner provinces of Canada. The West Coast, where I am, the Vancouver area, is a very liberal city. The East Coast as well, Toronto, is a very liberal city. Montreal as well, relatively liberal. But all the provinces in the middle, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they're a lot more conservative. And especially in these provinces, people see through this a lot more, than the yuppies on the two coasts. So there is a large portion and a large fragment of the population that's pushing back against all of this, that realizes what's going on, that realizes that their businesses are being crippled, that isn't standing back, that's speaking out. But once again, censorship nowadays is so high that it's very difficult for you guys in the US especially to even see these people. If they're given a platform, they're automatically deleted or taken off. Be they social commentators, be they scientists or people in the medical world, they just can't get a platform. But there's a lot of voices. I can definitely assure you in terms of that.
That's good to hear. Jessie, no offense, is the name of the user, and she said that what I said is false. So that's good to hear. Of course, I was just relaying an impression we get and gave a caveat. I know it's a stereotype and just doing my job to stimulate conversation. So I'm glad to hear that that's not the case up there. And there's plenty of people pushing back as well.
Yeah, I'd like to just add, Slav said a lot of great things about health throughout the totality of the stream today, of the show today, talking about getting away from all of the doom and gloom that you imbibe on your television and your newspapers, whatever it might be. The shows that you watch for entertainment, they're just priming you for more doom and gloom. And of course, the doom documenting and doom dissecting. If you're watching that sort of thing on an endless basis and you are feeling depressed, you are melancholic, get away from those things, turn them off, do something positive. Going free, of course, is one of the most positive things that you could do because you improve yourself. You access your latent abilities that you have been denied access to, more and more of those abilities. Get out and listen to the bird song, as Slav was saying. You'll find out that the sun will still rise, and that when the snow falls, it will be as virginal and beautiful as it has ever been. And then when spring comes, those flowers will be more ambrosial and beautiful than you have ever remembered them to be. The purpose of a lot of this information that is being forced upon us, and then the, I guess, understandable response of just documenting it and dissecting it all to hell, as though there's anything left of that corpse, that all of that is information that can be useful, is useful in many instances, and at the same time does build up this wall, this bête noire, as we talk about, that makes you feel depressed, that makes you feel psychologically abused and incapable of resisting and being healthy. So get away from it. That's one of the first things to do. Stop listening to the doom documenting and dissecting if you're feeling really bad. And then it's very easy to be in shape. And we've shared this before, and I'll just share, and we'll get to the few questions that we have now before we tap out tonight. And it's been magnificent to have another tap with the one and only Squatting Slav, and looking forward to a lot of great things from him. The kind of activity that he used to give us several years ago. We hope to see more of that. But one of the most important things about being healthy is not what all of these workout gurus and diet gurus, what they want you to do. They endlessly talk about eating all of this spectrum of this type of food and these macronutrients and these micronutrients. And the reason they talk about all of those things is because they know that you won't be able to do it without them. It justifies the money that you have to pay them to be there to tell you to do all of those things, to eat all of this way, to work out exactly that particular way. When in reality, the human animal, the body, is very simple. It's very simple to understand. And in fact, the most important thing is not eating this wide spectrum of all of these different macro and micro, and as well as all of the different vitamins and minerals and et cetera that are available for you. The most important thing is to stay away from the poisons. That is the most important thing. We have documented cases of nuns and monks and the like who have had very abstemious lifestyles when it comes to the variety of food that they had access to. And yet they lived very long, very healthy lifespans, and they were lucid throughout the totality of those lifespans. So you have to just get rid of the poison. That's the most important thing first. And the poisons come in many different varieties, and not the least of which is what Slav mentions, like the Cheetos. If you are one of these like proverbial Cheeto eating slobs sitting on the couch, leaned back like a Roman recumbent painting, and you're just chowing away, well, you notice in those paintings, the people are also fat and sloppy. Those were the wealthy, and they died early. The people out in the fields lived good, long, healthy lives and passed on good, healthy values to their offspring. So you get away from things like the Cheetos, get away from the processed foods, and that's the biggest step. And then what he was talking about, and I'm just underscoring the wonderful things that Slav had to share with us over the course of the hour. You can start working out right now. You don't have to have a gym. In fact, if you don't have a gym membership, whatever you do, don't go get one as part of your decision to get into better shape. That's the worst thing you can do. You have to develop a habit. And that habit begins on the floor of your house. That habit begins with if you have a place where you can do pull-ups. So where you can do push-ups, where you can do sit-ups, those activities, pull-ups, That sort of body weight activity and workout is some of the most important activity, some of the most important workout that you can do. Push-up is your entire body is working during a push-up. So become a push-up machine. If you're a woman, it's the same way. You can't do the same push-up that a man can do on his toes. Then use your knees. You can do the exact same thing from your knees. Become a push-out machine. Do your sit-ups. You could do your crunches if you don't want to sit all the way to the ground and all the way back up. And actually, there are reasons not to go all the way, because the stomach muscle is very similar to the heart muscle and can relax as quickly. So most people don't know that the heart rests more during your life than it works. And the reason, or the way it's able to do that, is by being able to recover so quickly. Ab muscles are very similar. So you don't want to let them relax during the workout, or they recover and you're doing nothing except tiring out your lungs, your stamina, and you end up giving up on your sit-ups before you've actually done any work for your abs. Squats and squat thrusts. These things are also very easy to do. Now, you can do right at home. You can pick up. I was talking with somebody the other day about, well, what if you're just in a basic room somewhere? You don't have dumbbells, you don't have barbells. Well, you have things like suitcases that you can fill with clothing. You have things around the house that you can be creative with, and you can begin doing squats with these sorts of things. You can begin doing deadlift with these sorts of things. You can look these lifts up to make sure you have the right form. And remember, what's most important is that your form is right, not the amount of weight you're moving. You want to have proper form, or you're going to end up injuring yourself. And of course, the caveat, if you have any joint injuries or tendon or ligament injuries or muscle injuries, and you're unsure about what you can or cannot do with those, consult with your physician first to make sure that you're not going to do something that is going to injure yourself. But the point is to begin slow and to stay committed. It doesn't matter how sick you are. It doesn't matter how much you don't want to do it. If you begin with something small and you stick with it, you'll develop a behavior that will compel you even when you don't want to do it. Even when the rest of you says, no, I don't want to do any of that today, you'll just find yourself doing it. So those are I just wanted to add on to what Slav was saying there, because they're brilliant, and it's a very important thing that we have to do, beginning with that psychological sunshine, quite literally turning off the TV or the YouTube where they're doom documenting or doom dissecting, and get out in the sun. Listen to the birds sing.
That's a poison. As you said, the main thing is removing poisons.
Yes.
Or remove the mental and spiritual poisons as well.
Yes, very precisely. Now we have here a question from Red Pill Bulgaria, and he's asking Slav, and I don't know if he would want to admit this or not, but we'll see. He says, is Slav planning to attend the big anti-COVID rally this Saturday in Vancouver? Are you planning to attend, or do you support, or do you have some thoughts on it that you would like to share?
First and foremost, shout out to Red Pill Bulgaria. I see him oftentimes on my Twitter. Good guy. I honestly didn't even know that there was an anti-COVID protest happening. Like, that's how out of it I've been in terms of happening here. I mean, I did just move back to the city a week and a half ago, so I was settling in into a new house and everything. But now that you tell me this, I might actually pop up and do some interviews. It's been a while, so it would definitely be fun. And I do plan on attending as many of these rallies as possible. I just have to get back into the loop of things because I've been completely out of it. So yeah, thanks for that. I'll look into it, and I might actually go and check it out.
Then we have Alex asking about discussing things like race with Canadians. And why don't we do this, just to sum it up, what might be the difference, or what have you seen to be the difference between discussing race and anti-whiteism with Canadians, maybe versus other Slavic people?
I feel like it's a much more taboo and touchy subject here, because obviously we don't live in a homogeneous setting. So it's a very touchy subject with most people as soon as you jump into race or skin color and all these things, it's kind of like, whoa, okay, back off. Like, why are you like people feel threatened by these subjects here. They feel scared to discuss them. And then you have a lot of people who want to talk about these things, but it takes a little bit of poking to kind of get it out of them. It takes a few drinks for all of it for them to go full on Mel Gibson. No, for them to come out with these things. Whereas in Serbia, I mean, you can a country like Serbia that's almost completely homogenous. You can speak about these things openly with people and get way less pushback. Although even there now, a lot of people have the European EU mindset where when bringing up something like this, they'll kind of look at you strange. But definitely the overwhelming majority of people there, you can discuss these kind of things without getting that pushback that you'd get here in Canada, for instance, where it is a lot more diverse.
Right. Let's get a big round of raucous emojis applauding for Jesse, who just financially gifted $50. Thank you so much, sweet sister. That is wonderful. And she writes, amazing show. Slav is a great guest. I guess I should go work out after this. And then it looks like maybe a crying emoji and then some laughing crying emojis. Yes. Get to the workouts. And thank you so very much for those $50 to the service of White Wellbeing. We deeply appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who is applauding. We always put everybody on our shoulders who do great works in creativity, writing, standing outside with a sign, finding leaflets all over their city where they're not legal to be, and of course distributing leaflets only where it's legal to distribute them, and of course financially gifting. So thank you so very much, dear Jesse. Promethean hails to you. We have Lord Hendrickson, and I don't know if this is some sort of a poem, perhaps, or riddle. I will read it, and then if Slav can make any sense of it or not, we will then move on. He says, remember guys, when squatting, heels to the ground, comrade found, heels to the sky, Western spy. Does that make any sense to you, Slav? If not, then we will just thank you very much, Hendrickson. And if you want to provide some context, let us know.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So the joke is that if your heels are to the sky, you're not squatting properly, and if your heels are to the floor, then you're squatting properly. If you're an imposter or a phony, you're going to be squatting with your heels up. But if you're a true Slav, then your heels are going to be planted well on that floor. So I know what he's saying, and I agree, my friend. It's a good way to sniff them out.
All right. Well, I'm glad you can make sense of it. We also have it's time to grow and learn right here. I hear that to a point that was made over the course of the hour. I hear that, unfortunately, since the early 90s, after the fall of the USSR, many Eastern European Russian young women have often moved and studied in the West and have been indoctrinated by feminism, of course, which is a subset of Antiwhiteism. So any thoughts on that, Slav?
Well, I'm not a Russian woman, so I wouldn't know about that. But
I thought you identified as one, at least on certain days of the week.
Come on, don't be a bigot. It's 2021. Don't assume. Okay. Yeah,
I was going to send you a racy text after the show.
You got my number, right?
Yeah.
No, it's funny because it is true, and it's not only a Russian thing. It's specific to all the Eastern European countries. A major problem with Eastern Europe is obviously brain drain. Like in Serbia, we have like 30,000 people leaving the country annually, because the economy is shitty, going elsewhere to pursue their livelihoods. So when you lose this amount of people and have such a large diaspora, obviously a lot of that diaspora does get, brainwashed by the leftist and communist agenda, and I do see it even with Serbian people here. a vast amount have to some degree been completely brainwashed. They're trying to live their lives like the Kardashians, and so on and so forth. Just the basic, Netflix Kardashian lifestyles. So it does happen, and it's sad, and that's why I feel it's important for Eastern Europeans, like outside of their homelands, to go back and to visit and to try to sort of rekindle their spirits with their countries and a true connection with their countries, because it does get diluted and sort of lost out here. Now, I'm not saying that assimilation is a bad thing, but there's obviously this wave of very toxic culture that's being pushed onto everyone, and like any other peoples, like Eastern Europeans are also victims to it. So it's a problem.
Yeah, and truly dreadful when they good healthy people in many ways end up coming over to countries where anti-whiteism is more present, and they get infected with that, and then they bring that garbage back home. And since they don't have the psychological defense for that psychological warfare, it spreads. Then they can go home and they can tell their families how evil their families are because of all of these reasons, all of these pretexts that they make inside the anti-white narrative, and they have no defense. That's why one of the reasons why we have to get going free, the practice of going free, over to all of the Eastern European countries and Russia. Maybe I'll just have to go on a peregrination through the Eastern European countries and up into Russia and spread going free as quickly as I can to inoculate them against. We're inoculating ourselves against all kinds of things these days. We might as well inoculate ourselves against the one thing that's actually white erasing our people from the planet. We have Ohesian Rebel financially gifting $10. Thank you, dear brother. And writes, great show, guys. We all need to look to the future. Very well said, and thank you for that. And we have one final question here, or is it a question? It's from Mestizo, and he writes, hail Tap, hail Squatting Slav, great stream. Well, we thank you for that so very much, dear brother. And looks like it's about time, folks, to tap out. So we're going to ask Slav to one more time tell folks where they can find him, what he is working on next, and any of his final thoughts that he would like to add. The floor is yours, brother.
Well, thank you once again, guys, tremendously for having me on the show. It's always an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys. I feel like we always have great energy whenever we all connect, even when we're just discussing everyday life. So I really do truly thank you guys. Once again, you guys can find me on YouTube, so youtube.com/SquattingSlavTV. I know the algorithms on there are messed up as well, so you can even just search me up if that doesn't work. Facebook, just type in Squatting Slav TV, twitter.com/SquattingSlavTV. I've been really inactive on most of these platforms for a good while now. I do plan on sort of jump-starting them once again as soon as I'm back in the loop of things here in the city, settling down with the new home, yada yada yada. So I should be pretty active on there as well. I want to start making content again, sort of weekly videos like this, or even out in the field. So those are sort of the short-term projects for me. And for everyone out there watching, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And just remember that the most important thing and the most beneficial thing you can do right now is to tune out of this negative, snowball of crap that's being thrown at you every single day by the media. So turn off your TVs, enjoy your lives, tune out of all of this. Remain vigilant, remain intelligent, but don't listen to the box in the corner of your room. Go outside, live healthy lives, hang out with your friends, do all the things that you were doing prior to all of this, and you'll see very shortly that life is almost the exact same as it was before. So that's the most important thing that I can tell to people. It's tune out, and you'll feel amazing. You won't have nearly as bad a year as you may have thought you had in 2020. So don't be hopeless. Don't be pessimistic. Rise above it all. As I said earlier, see it as a joke, as this big circus, and essentially just continue living your lives.
Mr. George, the floor is yours.
I just want to reiterate what Slav said. It's in your mind. It's in your spirit. That's the first and last place. That's the first and last word. So I agree wholeheartedly, my friend. And as always, we're very happy to have you on as well. I agree with you. Whether we're talking about just day-to-day things or bigger picture things, there's always a great connection, and we very much appreciate it. So I guess you'll be hearing a lot about this over the next month, but Jason might as well start planting this seed now. Everyone mark your calendars. Saturday, February 20th. Nice and easy. It's a Saturday. TAP 3-year anniversary special. More details on the way, but mark your calendars for that. My site is thegreatorder.com. You can find social media on the Find page. I just added some more platforms. I might be doing another Learning in Public show, the stream I do with John Bruce Leonard, author and editor, in the next couple of days. We've done a couple recently, one 2 weeks ago with Semiagog, one last week, just John and I. They really focused on language and ethnos, and it might be interesting to some of you. It definitely tracks very well with what Jason does, Going Free. You might see Jason actually just last night posted a clip from the show we had with Semiagog, where we spoke a little specifically about what's under the hood of Going Free and why that kind of material works and why it is not just guys talking online. It's actually the main front on which we need to be engaging, the main tool that people need, because we were taken over by the opposite, by manipulations in our language. So if you want to get a little deeper on that kind of stuff, we're offering some material on that. I have a new poem up that I put up last week. Well, it's not new, but it was in magazine and now it's new on my site. It was exclusive for a while. I am working on my next song. I know I said about once a month, so it's January 28th. I don't think it's going to come out in January. I never said, if you go back through my tweets and things, I never said it was every calendar month. I did say it's about once a month. Last song came out in late December. But hey, sometimes maybe in one calendar month, there'll be 2 songs. Maybe there'll be a song that comes out on the first and a song that comes out on the last day of the month. So kind of like the moon, sometimes there's 2 in 1 month. But working on that next one, and you'll hear it soon. It's totally different than the first 2. It'll be a little more electronic. Wanted to start these first few songs kind of establishing different styles that I do and kind of give you the whole range, and then just keep going from there, have fun from there. But my love to all of you all around our beautiful world. Thank you all for tuning in. Please, again, take to heart what's been said today. Keep positive in your lives. Keep a loving perspective. Make sure that you're not reacting to the nonsense that you're getting on the news. Make sure that you're the sovereign, you're the king or the queen of your own life, and we'll get through this together. But my love to you all. Slav, again, always great speaking to you. All my best to you and your loved ones. Stay safe if you go out to that protest or anything like that. But we know you're good at that kind of thing. It's kind of Slav in his natural habitat, right? So we'll have to keep an eye out. Go subscribe to his channel. Of course, if you're listening in replay, go to our sites, and on the post for this particular episode, all of Slav's links will be there under the video. But thank you so much, everyone. We'll speak to you soon.
Very well said, brother. And it's going to happen one of these days, folks. The live stream is going to start up on my channel, and Slav is going to be standing by my side. I don't know where we'll be, but we'll probably end up in a fist fight with a group of anti-whites. I wouldn't, if anything happens, it might be something like that, or at least some severe mocking of anti-whites, if nothing else. But it's been a fantastic show, and it's the exact kind of conversation we need to be having, a great escape. And let me tell you, a great escape of what we're seeing in the world around us, a great escape from all of this melancholic doom and gloom, life is over sort of nonsense. And let me ask you to do this. You're going to have friends that you're going to see in other platforms, on in other chats. You're going to find people who are getting as depressed as they can possibly be. They're going to be able to list every single thing that's going wrong in the world today and not able to list a single thing that is going right. We focus on making positive changes to our lives, to our families, to our communities, to our world, so that we, Western kind, can recapture our destiny. You and us, we're all going to do it together. And I ask you to do that. Bring as many people as you can to this positivity. We love you all, and we look forward